If, like me, you want to enjoy your favourite music and podcasts uninterrupted, you'll be thrilled to hear about the latest upgrade from today's sponsor, Raycon. Raycon's everyday earbuds have always delivered top-notch audio quality that rivals the big brands, all while keeping your wallet happy. But recently, they've made their best sellers even better. These upgraded everyday earbuds are not just about stunning sound quality. They now come with enhanced features like active noise cancellation to help truly immerse you in your audio experience. Their new ergonomic design is sleeker and comes with a simpler, more intuitive LED UI. For those on the go, you'll appreciate the quick charge function, as just 10 minutes of charging now yields an hour and a half of battery life. And for those who like a bit of colour in their tech, these Raycon earbuds come in a variety of shades. But you know me, it had to be black. My favourite feature though has to be their new multi-point connectivity, which allows you to connect to 2 devices simultaneously. As someone who juggles between gadgets while working and relaxing at home, that's been a game changer. Whether you're a long-time Raycon fan or considering your first pair, now's the perfect time to check out these upgraded everyday earbuds. Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/masquerade to get 20% off your Raycon purchase, plus free shipping. This was the Western Complex of Continuous Education, situated in Moscow, Russia, an institution for students too disruptive to attend ordinary high school, a place for the unruly and academically uninterested to learn a trade skill such as woodworking. One of the school's former students was 18-year-old Andrei Amelyanikov, a quiet and introverted young man who was sent to the complex because of his terrible attendance record at his previous school. The problem Andrei had was that he was far more interested in playing video games than studying. Now, of course, most boys his age would rather be playing Dark Souls than learning about dark matter, but Andrei whittled away nearly all of his waking hours in front of his computer screen and barely ever showed up for any of his classes. An institution with tougher, no-nonsense educators was just the boot up the backside that Andrei needed. At least, that's what everyone hoped. Though he had few friends in the real world, Andrei was extremely active on gaming forums and had built himself a fairly large social circle online. One of those internet friends, Margarita, described him as a completely ordinary guy with a good sense of humour. Though obviously, when you're dealing with people through a monitor, you can never truly be sure they are the person that they present themselves to be. Indeed, Andrei seemed to be living vicariously through the sites he visited and the games he played. His avatar was the fanatical antagonist from Silent Hill 4, The Room, Walter Sullivan, a calm and shy killer who, in the game, carved a string of numbers into his victims, and who ended his own existence by severing an artery in his neck. But what his fellow forum users didn't know was that Andrei didn't just appreciate Walter Sullivan, he idolized him. In the latter months of 2017, Andrei began complaining to his friends online about his health and safety lecturer, Sergei Danilov. The pair had gotten into numerous disputes that semester. A former army officer and father of 3, Mr. Danilov didn't tolerate bad behaviour, backchat or tardiness, and it's believed that Andrei's apathy during his classes was the cause of much friction. One of their so-called conflicts had gotten so heated that Mr. Danilov was preparing to have Andrei expelled from the Polytechnic. Andrei would tell his friends, "I'm gonna kill that guy sooner or later." But since dark and edgy humour made up about half of their friendship circle's conversations, nobody took him seriously. "Such jokes were common on our forum," recounted one former user. "We didn't pay those comments much attention." One thing the other users did pick up on though was how Andrei began ending his messages with the hashtag 11117. When they asked him what the number was meant to signify, Andrei never explained, but its purpose soon became crystal clear. On November 1st, 2017, Andrei attended his Wednesday classes on Gavardeskaya Street as per usual, but his studies were the last thing on his mind. During a break period, Andrei made his way to Mr. Danilov's classroom on campus and found the lecturer alone, his back facing the door. With a toothpick in his mouth and a kitchen knife in his hand, Andrei quietly approached Mr. Danilov from behind and, in a furious rage, plunged the blade into his neck. The 44-year-old health and safety teacher collapsed to the floor, unable to scream for help, Andre then posed for 2 selfies, one with his victim's body, which I can't show here, and a second, which I can. Andre posted this image to his VK page immediately after taking Sergei Danilov's life, along with a song by Chicago-based band November's Doom. In the image, a gleeful Andre posed with a power saw which he had taken from the school's workshop, his toothpick still hanging from his mouth. But he didn't take this photo as a sick memento to look back on in years to come, but rather as a memento mori for others to think on. Minutes after posting this photo, Andre would use that same saw to slice his own throat. Another teacher would later enter the class and find Mr. Danilov lying in the middle of the room, and Sergei under one of the desks. Medics were summoned, but the 2 men were deemed DOA. Speaking of their fallen teacher, Mr. Danilov, an anonymous student said, "He was a very kind person. He was strict, but he was fair. He was like a father to us. I have no single bad thought about him. Regardless of what was happening, he was our support. He always tried to help us." The band November's Doom also spoke out about the incident, stating in a press release, "To the families and friends of all involved, our utmost and sincere apologies for the pain you're going through, and we as a collective hope you find the strength to get through this unfortunate event. We do not and would never condone this sort of use of our art and our music. We create the style of music we do to reach people on an emotional level, and the thought of it being used for something like this sickens us beyond words." The authorities have since determined that Andre was motivated by a so-called online death group, whose members egged each other on to play games of life or death, though how they came to that conclusion remains unclear. Born in 1954, Rosario Endrenal grew up in a relatively poor household. Thanks to her high IQ, good looks, and bubbly personality though, Charo, as she preferred to be called, had managed to make a decent life for herself. She married a man named Luis Rodriguez, and in 1981 they welcomed their daughter, Xantal, into the world. Thanks to her fluency in foreign languages, Charo landed herself a well-paying job at the Spanish superstore, Brica. Things fell apart for Charo in 1995 when she ran off with an executive from her company, a Frenchman named Jean. Jean got Charo hooked on cocaine, and before long, her fondness for the substance spiraled out of control. She would go on to lose her job, and having had his fun, Jean abandoned Charo on the streets of Paris, leaving her with nothing but a lifelong addiction to remember him by. Charo returned to Barcelona and tried to reconnect with her husband and daughter, but by that point, they had turned their back on her. Now homeless and jobless, Charo would spend the next 5 years alone, sleeping inside a CaixaBank ground floor vestibule, a small enclosed area that housed an ATM. The bank was located in the affluent San Gervasi neighborhood, and Charo had once worked there before falling on hard times. In the early hours of December 16th, 2005, a now 51-year-old Charo was again sleeping on a bed of cardboard in that same enclosed booth. At about 1:30 a.m., 2 18-year-olds whom she had never met, Ricard Pinilla and Oriol Plana, entered the booth and began to hurl insults at Charo. They kicked her, threw garbage at her, and struck her with a plastic bottle and a traffic cone, after which the 2 men went outside to find more items to hit her with. This photo captured the moment that Charo managed to lock them both outside of the vestibule, and, unable to get back inside, the men departed. This was unfortunately far from the first time that such an occurrence had happened to Charo. She had often been attacked by other territorial homeless people and angry drunks. As such, she knew that calling the police wouldn't achieve anything, and so, now believing herself to be safe, Charo simply laid down and went back to sleep. Several hours later, at 4:20 a.m., a 16-year-old named Juan Jose Mera knocked on the booth's door and told Charo that he needed to use the ATM. Charo let him in, unaware that Juan Jose was in cahoots with Ricard and Oriol. This image of Charo opening the door is the last captured of her alive. Juan Jose, Ricard, and Oriol entered the booth and began mocking and attacking Charo once again. Ricard and Juan Jose then left briefly, and 30 minutes later, returned with 25 litres of Universal Thinner 039, an industrial paint thinner. As Azrael held the door open, Juan Jose and Ricard doused Shadow in the flammable substance. Ricard then ignited her using his cigarette. They fled the scene, laughing as Shadow was engulfed in flames that burned at 400 degrees Celsius. Firefighters arrived at the scene shortly thereafter and found Shadow clinging to life with 70% of her body covered in burns. She would pass away 28 hours later while receiving treatment. The whole incident was captured by one of the bank's surveillance cameras. The footage sparked nationwide outrage in Spain, and the attackers were quickly identified and arrested. Once in custody, Ricard and Azrael were severely beaten by other inmates, and one of them had their head shaved. Juan Jose's case was handled by the juvenile court. During their trial, Ricard and Azrael's defense team attempted to downgrade their charge from murder to manslaughter, claiming the fire was started accidentally. The jury saw through that, especially when the prosecution revealed videos found on Ricard's phone. Videos which showed the trio attacking and humiliating other homeless people. As would come to light, the three defendants were ideologically opposed to homelessness, but rather than try and help the less fortunate through charitable means, they decided they wanted to simply wipe them from the streets of Spain. In November 2008, Ricard and Azrael were each given a 17-year sentence for intentionally ending Shadow's life, while Juan Jose received 8 years behind bars and 5 years of supervised release. Given this incident occurred more than 18 years ago, all three of them are now free men. In fact, Ricard was released early in 2016, having served just 11 years. He justified his past actions by saying he was insecure and had low self-esteem, and claims to feel extreme remorse. Though personally, I'm skeptical. Shadow's daughter, Santal, has since expressed that the three killers did more than just end Shadow's life that day. They also destroyed any chance of the mother and daughter reconciling. Perhaps, on a day like today, my mother could have decided to accept help and become again the woman she had once been. But that opportunity was taken away from her. This is the last photo of Nirupama Prajapati, captured mere moments before her life came to an abrupt end. On January 3rd, 2021, Nirupama and her friends were picnicking near a scenic waterfall in India's Kanakund, otherwise known as the Grand Canyon of Odisha. After their meal, the group decided to walk towards the banks of the raging Ib River and take some pictures for their social media pages. Immediately after this image was taken, Nirupama turned her focus to capturing the perfect selfie along the Ib's rocky ledge. One of her companions filmed what happened next. A man, who also happened to be taking selfies beside the churning waters, lost his balance and inadvertently nudged Nirupama, causing her to lose her footing and tumble into the rapids. The water was shallow, but incredibly strong, and though Nirupama managed to cling to the rocks briefly, she was soon overpowered by the current and swept downstream. Following a grueling 22-hour search by the fire brigade and her loved ones, Nirupama's remains were located the following day in a stone crevice 400 meters downstream, wedged under a rock. She had been carried over the nearby waterfall. Unfortunately, Nirupama's case is just one in a long line of selfie-related fatalities in India. In recent years, tourists have fallen from great heights, been struck by cars and trains, and been mauled by wildlife, all while trying to snap the perfect selfie. In 2018, for instance, a man in the same state of Odisha was attacked by a wild bear after he tried to pose for a photo with it. A disturbing video later surfaced of an angry crowd beating the animal to death as punishment. In a separate incident, a Japanese tourist was trying to take a selfie at the Taj Mahal when he lost his footing and tumbled to his doom down a staircase. And those are but two examples. According to a study published by the Journal of Travel Medicine, there have been at least 379 selfie-related deaths over the past 13 years, far more than the 90 fatal encounters with sharks during that same timeframe. Unfortunately, the pursuit of the perfect picture can cause some individuals to disregard safety precautions, prioritizing likes over their own lives. And of all the countries examined in the study, India had the most selfie-related deaths by far, accounting for 26.4% of the total, followed by the United States at 10.3%. As a result, the Indian government, as well as numerous other governments around the world, are now beginning to take action against this growing epidemic by implementing no selfie zones, particularly in areas with steep drops and bodies of water. These measures are designed to encourage people to take in their surroundings and view life through their own eyes rather than through a phone screen, not only so that they can enjoy a more authentic travel experience, but a safer one too. In essence, they're saying that it's better to live in the moment than to risk dying in it. In many ways, K-pop could be described as the Marmite of the music world. Those who love it seem to really love it, and those who don't, really don't. For the sake of my like to dislike ratio, I'm not passing judgment, but whether you consider the music a boon or a bane, for all its gloss and polish, K-pop has an undeniable dark side. Performers are often subjected to notoriously grueling training schedules, frequently face mistreatment and exploitation, and are often discarded when they fail to live up to the industry's impossible standards. Idols who value their careers, public image, and bank balance are sometimes pressured by their labels into silence, threatened with lawsuits if they try to speak out. But it's through adversity that the strongest bonds are forged. This is Ladies Code, a K-pop quintet whose original lineup consisted of members Sojung, Zuni, Eunbi, Rise, and their leader, Ashley. They formed back in 2012, and though they weren't as big as other contemporary acts, I'm told they were considered rising stars, with a few early hits under their belt. Though it's unknown whether Ladies Code had to deal with any maltreatment from their agency, Polaris Entertainment, who have been the subject of several scandals I must say, these 5 ladies had formed an unbreakable connection, and described themselves as sisters. Of all of them, however, the 2 closest members were undoubtedly Rise and Eunbi. The pair weren't only best friends, but roommates, inseparable both on stage and off. The 2 girls were always side by side, smiling and having fun, as can be seen in this photo, posted to Ashley's Twitter page. It would be the last photo to show all 5 members together. You see, shortly after this image was posted, the unthinkable would occur. It was September 2nd, 2014. And Ladies Code were recording a segment for the KBS Live Open concert in Daegu, South Korea. This footage shows them performing that very evening. After filming the concert, the girls and one of their stylists hopped into a van driven by their road manager, a man known only as Mr. Park. Together, they set off on an ill-fated journey back to Seoul, making a pit stop just after midnight. It was now September 3rd, and the group were in high spirits, given that it was Sojung's 21st birthday. When Sojung returned from the bathroom, the other members surprised her with a makeshift cake made from choco pies. However, concerned about weight gain, they all decided not to eat it. A decision Sojung would later deeply regret. It was approximately 1:30 AM. Conditions were rainy on the Yeongdeung Expressway, and Mr. Park was speeding at 85 miles per hour in a zone marked 60. While approaching Singal Junction, just outside the capital, the van began hydroplaning and skidding. Mr. Park lost control of the vehicle, and witnesses reported seeing the van roll several times before colliding with a guardrail. Park, who had maintained consciousness, immediately called for help. Of the 7 occupants, 4 were able to exit the vehicle and flag down ambulances, while the other 3, Eunbi, Rise, and Sojung, remained unconscious inside. None of the airbags had deployed at the moment of impact, and a first responder said he didn't recall undoing any seatbelts while attending to the 3 women. The situation was described as extremely chaotic, with Rise found not to be breathing and requiring immediate CPR. All 7 occupants were rushed to nearby hospitals. Eunbi was pronounced dead on arrival at the Songbin Medical Center. She was 21 years old. Sojung and Rise, who sustained the most severe injuries, were initially taken to the Catholic University of Korea St. Vincent's in a critical condition. Rise's condition worsened, and she was transferred to Ajo University Hospital for emergency brain surgery. She succumbed to her injuries and passed away on the morning of September 7th, 2014. Sojung's condition was eventually stabilized. Ashley, Zuni, Mr. Park and the stylist sustained minor injuries and were released after treatment. Shortly after the incident, the media descended upon the crash site, and these images began circulating online. Several keen-eyed internet users noticed something in the wreckage. A banana plush. It was the late Umbi's favourite toy, given to her by a fan. She had talked about it in interviews, and said how she slept with it whenever she felt lonely. Frustratingly, the paparazzi were said to have acted disgracefully at both women's funerals, ignoring their families' requests for privacy and snapping close-ups of grieving guests without their permission. In court, Mr. Park testified that one of the van's back wheels had come off while he was driving, which led to him skidding and crashing, but experts determined that the wheel had actually detached as a result of the crash itself. Park was sentenced to a year and 2 months in jail in 2015, a sentence which was later suspended, provided that he attend 40 hours of driving classes. He would eventually settle with the families of Umbi and Rise out of court. Following the accident, the 3 surviving members of Ladies' Code continued to perform together. Their first show was held in Rise's native homeland, Japan, and was dedicated to both her and her fallen sister, Umbi. It had always been Rise's dream to perform in Yokohama, a dream she herself never got to realize. Despite their promising future, Ashley, Sojung, and Zuni went on an indefinite hiatus following the expiration of their contract with Polaris, finding it too difficult to continue performing after what happened. Though the memory of that terrible night still lives on in their minds, so do thoughts of the good times. Times like this, when all 5 of them were together. A huge thank you to my supporters here on YouTube and over on Patreon. George Lopez, Holly Lyons, ModestBulbasaur, Alana Pons, Asiamina, Azrael Warakai, Chief Cochuaque, Colin Monsma, Connor Louthan, Wewzow, Farewelltattoosjaxfl, Gina Valera, Hamish, Biluck, Kevin Villa, Mistyblue Longie, Monica Mendoza, Biluck, SmilinJack, Terry Ford, TNS Mum, LJB, Nicole Beshia, Hamish K, Ellen Dolloff, Itai Alon, Nefis 1988, and Lydia Ciummo. Thank you so much for your continued support.